Now that we're able to display message boxes in our applications, we now need a way to capture the response that the user is now providing. In message boxes, you might simply display a message, and you don't want the user to respond necessarily other than to say OK and then proceed. If that's the case, then no other action is necessary. However, many times you will want the user to respond to a yes or no or cancel type button, and you then want to take a certain action based on their response. To capture that information about the outcome of the messagebox.show method, we first must declare a variable that can hold an instance of what's referred to as the dialog result data type. As you can see in this dim statement, I have a variable that has been declared to be of type dialog result. Dialog result is a special data type that will detect and capture the user's response. The name of the variable is totally made up by the programmer. In this case, I have chosen to call it button dialog result to make it generic. Below this, I have our messagebox.show that we've seen previously that will display a message and display to the user the abort, retry, and ignore buttons along with an appropriate icon. If we want the user to respond to abort, retry, or ignore, or yes or no, for that matter, we typically would want this message box to be placed within a button dialog result type statement. That is, we now want to place the variable button dialog result immediately before the messagebox.show statement and make it an equation by using the equal sign. So now what we're saying is display the message box with the appropriate message and the appropriate buttons, but now recognize that the user is going to respond, and now whatever they respond to of the choices that we present them, that response will now be stored in the variable called button dialog result. Once again, we have not discussed if statements, but typically how this will be used is to now be used in an if statement that says if button dialog result and notice if I don't provide any more information, it will request it. But if I provide the equal symbol, I then am presented with a series of choices. And here is where the IntelliSense will recognize that the button dialog result is tied to this message box, and here we can choose the appropriate response. So if, for example, I want to say yes, the user has chosen abort, or if they choose abort, then I can write code to allow that to happen. If, on the other hand, I wish to focus on the retry, for example, or the cancel, or ignore, or whatever the appropriate button might be. So keep in mind, the key here is to declare the variable. Without this variable, this if statement would not be possible. And also, the syntax is now that the messagebox.show statement is part of the equation of button dialog result equals and then the message box. This way, you now have the ability to not only display the user the message, but to then respond to their response in an appropriate manner.